Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. And our first story is from Who Even Is That 5 and says, am I the arsehole for telling my fiance my daughter has to be in our wedding? I, 45 male, have a daughter, P, from a previous relationship. I divorced my ex on good terms and we share 50-50 custody of P. She is now 11. After I divorced my ex-wife, I met my now fiance, S. S and my daughter got along very well. After 5 years of my relationship with S, I proposed. S was super excited and wanted to start planning right away. She looked at venues and started asking her friends to be her bridesmaids. She then told me she wanted her niece to be a flower girl, which I had no problem with, but I said I also wanted P to be a flower girl. S looked at me funny and then said that she didn't think P would fit the part. I got angry and told S that my daughter would be in our wedding. S started to become upset and said that the girls in the wedding were up to her and P wouldn't be one of them. I told S that if P wasn't in the wedding, then there might not be a wedding. I stormed out and took P to get ice cream. P knows that we are getting married and she told me that she thinks she will look pretty in whatever dress S decides she should wear. This broke my heart and I decided to text S. I told her that I would be staying at her friend's to think this over. My mother-in-law texted me saying that I'm overreacting and that my daughter doesn't have to be in my wedding, and I was an arse for saying that I would cancel. So did I take it too far saying I will cancel? Am I overreacting or just being a good dad? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation, and it would make me second guess the relationship that you have. She's willing to exclude your daughter as a part of your wedding. And with many stories that we cover with this particular topic, the question's always asked, how is this going to carry on into other parts of your life? Is she always going to treat her as less than? And there's other parts of the story where she's willing to just totally go over your head, you know, it's her decision, nothing to do with you, yet it's your wedding as well. And in the end, she's getting mother-in-law involved to jump on you when she can. There's a whole bunch of red flags waving right here, but 10 times 10 says this is a big red flag. If she doesn't want to include her stepdaughter in her wedding, then don't expect she will include your daughter in her life. Muppet Bon Jovi says, not the arsehole. Props to you for standing up for your daughter. That's exactly what a good dad should do. Your fiance is trying to diminish your daughter's role in your wedding. I'd be concerned that'll carry over to other parts of your life too. Whatever bullshit she means by her not fitting the part sends up huge red flags to me too. I have kids and this would be a deal breaker for me. Music says, not the arsehole. Be careful. S just showed you her true feelings for P. You want the people who mean the most in your wedding. The fact that your fiance, who I'm guessing is younger than you, and this will be her first marriage, doesn't think your daughter fits that description is extremely telling to me. Even if S gives in, you've now seen where your daughter rates her in potential stepmother's life. If you choose to ignore this, it won't be the last time your daughter is left on the outside, looking in. Natural Garbage replies to that and says, hard agree. I was a teen when my dad married my stepmother. My stepmother didn't like us very much, but there was no hesitation. My brothers were groomsmen and I was a bridesmaid. The bridal parties ended up being different sizes. It was pretty clear that I was tacked on. Since there was one more bridesmaid than groomsmen and my dad only had my brothers, but I was automatically included from the get-go. No hesitation, no doubt. Just the automatic assumption by my dad and his wife-to-be that we would be in the wedding party. If my stepmother, who barely tolerated me, cared enough to include me, what does it say about S, who thinks that her fiance's child doesn't fit her aesthetic? Pretty sure that means the daughter doesn't fit in her life either. Jazzy Knows Best says, not the arsehole. She could be a junior bridesmaid if your fiance also wants a younger child in the role of flower girl. It's also a possibility to have her stand up with you on the groom's side. I'd be rethinking if I wanted to proceed with marriage to someone who was so adamant about not having my only child in our wedding. Even if she decides to give in, I'd have a hard time moving past this. And one more comment which says, not the arsehole. You aren't overreacting at all. It isn't just S's wedding, it's your wedding as a couple, and a joining of families. What a dumb hill for S to die on, but she's showing you who she really is. The fact that S wants to exclude your daughter should tell you all you need to know and how S really feels about your daughter. I think you're right to reconsider things. How S is treating stepdaughter will now set the stage for how she will continue to treat her if you marry her. Imagine how S treats your daughter when you aren't around. Think about that. So OP does update the post and they said, "Hey Reddit, thanks everyone for all the kind words and suggestions. To answer a few questions, my daughter is not disabled, chubby, or having an awkward phase, braces/glasses. I did ask if P could be a groomsman. S immediately shot me down. S is 39. She's the same race as my daughter. This is her first marriage. I try to answer as many comments as possible. I came home to talk to S today. When I pulled in our driveway, my mother-in-law was sitting there in her car. I got out and went inside, trying to avoid talking to mother-in-law. S was sitting at the kitchen table and I joined her. She sat in silence, so I asked the first question. Why does P not fit the part, and why didn't you want her in the wedding at all? Her answer full-on shocked me. She quietly said, I was hoping that after the wedding you could become a holiday visit-only dad. I didn't want her in the wedding so she wouldn't be in the photos around the house since she wasn't going to be around much. I kept my cool, calmly took her hand and pulled my engagement ring off. Her eyes started to tear up. She said she wouldn't end the marriage over this and that she can change. I told her the damage was already done. I told her I wanted her things moved out by next week and that she could come get them when my daughter wasn't home. The house is in my name and I paid for it. I was allowing her to get her furniture she paid for. She stormed out and mother-in-law came knocking on the door saying I was being unreasonable. I couldn't imagine only seeing my daughter 3 or 4 times a year. The fact that S wanted me to give up a part of my custody blew me away. I'm sitting on my couch just in shock. Our honeymoon was supposed to be in Hawaii. Looks like me and P will be going instead. We'll update again if anything happens. Gee whiz, what a bullet dodged in that situation. Imagine sitting opposite someone and saying, I thought you'd just give up your time with your child after we got married. I don't want no pictures of her around the house. Holy shit, the absolute audacity. And it was comments saying the fact that she hid this plan and these feelings from OP for 5 years is just chilling. But what do you guys make of this situation? I don't think there was any other way about it apart from cutting them out. Will they give up? Will mother-in-law come back? Who knows? We may see that in the future. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. And our next story does come with an update as well. This was from a deleted user who says, Am I the arsehole for telling my mother she was being childish over my wife falling asleep half naked in her living room? Okay, so my wife and I are visiting my mother this week. She and I don't have a good relationship with my mother, but due to some recent stuff going on in our lives, my wife said she wanted to maybe try to mend that relationship, and I agreed and reached out to her and scheduled a visit. The first day went pretty well, as did yesterday. Then last night we were sleeping in the guest room and heard the baby crying and my wife got up to go get him. So here's what happened. She was wearing a t-shirt and underwear when she got up to take care of the baby. Then she took off her shirt to feed the baby, put the baby back down, and just lied on the floor of the living room and fell asleep without putting her shirt back on. She was essentially just sleepwalking. My mother woke up this morning and told me that my wife was on the living room floor in just her bottoms and seemed extremely offended she did that and told me to get her that instant. I woke her up and got her shirt back, and we went back to the room where she got dressed. She was really embarrassed and told my mother she was sorry, but my mother wouldn't let it go and kept going on about how she couldn't believe she did that while we were guests in her house, and told her she was being extremely childish since she had to raise a baby before too, and should know how hectic it can be. This made her very angry and led to a pretty intense argument that ended with us getting our things and leaving. My wife is really embarrassed and feels really bad, and I'm pissed. I get that it was her house we're staying at, but for Christ's sake, my wife just had a baby and has been working her ass off taking care of him. Am I the arsehole? Edit, something I should have mentioned in the post. My wife is autistic, so she can behave in strange manners sometimes. And yes, my mother knows that. Edit 2, to clarify, yeah, we had the baby's cot in the living room, so she just lied down after putting him down. And we're starting the comments with NS Talkas. He says, You're the arsehole. You wanted to mend the relationship and chose to impose yourself for several days on your mother. Ever heard of fish and company stink after 3 days? You gave yourself no breathing room to correct the relationship. Fixing the relationship means you have to be on your best behavior. It's about avoiding conflict, and staying over with a baby is not that. Ever. Also, being autistic has nothing to do with being so out of it. You assume that you walk bare-breasted in your host's living room and fall asleep on the rug. That's being amazingly sleep-deprived or grossly rude. I'm amazed your baby was in a different room to begin with. That's inconsiderate to take over 2 rooms like that and expose more residents of the house to your baby's crying. A-Tide Cryptid says, I feel like this would be totally understandable given the circumstances. Yes, it's a little awkward, but your wife is literally sleep-deprived and trying to feed a baby. She apologized. That should be enough. Maybe a relationship with your mum isn't meant to be. Not the arsehole. Never Leave says, am I the only one here that has no issues with some breasts? This poor woman sounds exhausted. Who, if sufficiently coherent, would sleep on the lounge floor and not a bed? Have some compassion. Mother seems to lack any empathy and wife was embarrassed and apologized. It's not like she was flinging her boobs in people's faces at a restaurant. Jeez. Really disappointed in Reddit right now. DLR says, I have a different perspective. Why would you ever be half naked in someone's house? I wouldn't even walk around in a t-shirt and underwear. Falling asleep on the living room floor with no shirt on is inexcusable. It is your mother's house, not yours. If you did it in your house, this wouldn't be an issue. Getting up in the middle of the night to feed a baby is not so exhausting that you can't put pajamas on afterwards. Remembering what you find acceptable in your own home isn't always acceptable in others. Tonelock says, not the arsehole. Good on you for sticking up for your wife. Autistic or not, she's exhausted. And you probably are too if you're pulling your weight and doing a fair share of the new baby duties. Obviously, it wasn't an intentional offense and your wife is embarrassed already. Instead of finding a way to help or comfort your wife, she chooses to find malice in it and continue to shame her after an apology. I can only shake my head in disbelief at her and some of the posts here. Lack of empathy and understanding. I definitely wouldn't waste too much time, energy, or effort on a relationship with someone like that. Good luck with a newborn and finding a better support network. Quirky Syrup says, honestly, when visiting someone else's home, you should have a set of jammies and maybe a robe. Front button tops are great for nursing. Kids, fire, run to the bathroom are all reasons to put a little more effort into your nighttime ritual when away from home. Having a hard time picturing awake enough to put the child back while stumbling around in underwear, then going back to the living room floor. This is not autism. If your wife is able to care for a child, she is certainly capable of knowing proper protocols for visiting someone's home. El Martinez says, if she is autistic, she may have sensory issues. Wearing too many clothes to bed may be an issue. She could have bought a robe and intended to put it on, but to be honest, she didn't have the stamina and awareness to put the shirt back on, so how would she have remembered to put the robe on? Seems easy peasy to remember if you aren't neurodivergent. Honestly, OP is not the arsehole. I have 2 sons. If I was in this situation, I'd have quietly gone to get the son. Told him to say they found her and that way avoiding embarrassment. Seriously, it's not like she did it on purpose, and honestly, it's a human body and she was exhausted feeding that grandbaby. It's not like she took a shit on the floor. And there was a mixed bag of comments on this one, but coming from my point of view, if I walked into that situation, I sort of pictured it as, she went to feed the baby, she fed the baby, and then she put the baby back down and just sort of laid there for a couple of moments waiting for the baby to settle and probably fell asleep, and that's that. If I was to walk in on this, I'd probably do very much similar to like that last comment said, just talking to the son, avoid embarrassment for her as well, because I'm sure she doesn't want to be found on the living room floor with her boobs out. Like many of the comments said, she just sounds absolutely exhausted. And there may have been ways to, avoid that situation happening in the first place, but it happened. Is it a big deal? No, it fucking isn't. Not for me personally anyway. But now let's have a look at the update to see what happens next. So OP says, okay, so 2 months ago, I made a post about how my wife, 8-month-old son, and I visiting my mother's house, where my wife put our son to sleep feeding him on the first night and was so tired she fell asleep on the floor with her shirt off, which made my mother very unhappy. I told her she was being childish and we left. Since then, my mother and I have been able to draw some sort of truce where things are about where they were before, if not a little worse. However, I know a lot of people were concerned about my wife, and I just wanted to share something that happened today. So my wife's stepsister and her 5-year-old daughter are visiting us right now. Last night my wife was watching TV in the living room and our son was in his living room cot, and she fell asleep on the couch with the TV on and the baby asleep. Then she ended up doing the same thing where she woke up in the middle of the night and took her shirt off to feed him, then fell asleep on the couch without her shirt on. This morning her niece was the first one downstairs, and she saw my wife and woke her up and was giggling like, "Aunt, you fell asleep without your shirt on," and then picked up her shirt off the ground and gave it back to her. My wife said she felt embarrassed and mortified at first, then immediately after she put it back on, her niece quickly moved on to asking about what was her breakfast, and the two of them went to the kitchen to talk and make everyone breakfast, and her niece didn't once mention finding her on the couch without her shirt. My wife told me that it literally made her realize just how much of a not big deal situation with my mother was, and how my mother was just being a baby. And now she feels a lot better about that whole situation I posted about. It's pretty tragic and hilarious that a fucking 5-year-old child handled the situation with more grace and maturity than my grown-ass mother did. Anyway, yeah, that made me really happy, and I wanted to share it since it probably would make a bunch of others who were worried about her happy too. And someone expressed some concern for OP's wife. They said, "Is your wife okay? 8 months and still so exhausted that she's passing out naked on living room floors seems a little extreme. I get being tired, babies are exhausting, but I don't remember that level of tired at 8 months with any of my 3. Has she talked to her doctor? With newborns you wake every couple of hours. But by 8 months, baby should be sleeping a good stretch through the night. Does she nap when she can to catch up on sleep? Does baby sleep 4 to 6 hours stretch? Do you get up at night ever? Or can you take the baby for a few hours when you get home so she can have a nap before bedtime?" Opie says, "We thought the exact same thing, so after that happened we made sure she was getting good sleep. I do everything I can around the house, and my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law have been coming by often to help out when I'm at work, to make sure she can take naps and isn't overly exhausted." But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story from Throwaway Casino, who says, "Am I the arsehole for calling my husband a fucking idiot and leaving with the kids? We have 2 young children, under 5. He's had a significant issue with gambling in the casino in the past. He has been doing a lot better with this since we implemented a rule, his suggestion that if we both can't go, neither of us will go. We've gone maybe 3 to 4 times in the past 3 years. Last night, he was supposed to be going to the gas station and then to the store so I could make his lunch for work the next day. We live about 5 minutes from these places. Should have taken him 20 minutes tops. Around 40 minutes after he left, I tried calling him and he did not answer. I looked on Find My and saw him heading towards a casino. The only money he had in cash was the money he was supposed to be transferring between banks to pay his loan payment. I immediately tried calling him again twice. He did not answer, which is typical of him when he sneaks off to the casino. I texted him and told him we did not have the money for this. All we have is the loan money and money for the week. He didn't answer. I tried calling again and he didn't answer. At this point I was mad. I told him, "You're a fucking idiot if you spend that money. You will not make your loan payment if you do." I texted him again and told him he's broken my trust again and violated the rule that he suggested. I told him if he did not turn around, the kids and I will not be here when he gets home. He never answered me, so I packed up the kids and went to my cousin's. He tried calling me once at 3 AM, which I assume is when he got home. He had to be at work at 2 PM. He tried calling me on a break at 6 and I didn't answer, just sent him a picture of the kids and said, "We were fine and I don't feel like speaking to you." My dad and mum have both told me that I was wrong to call him names and wrong to take the kids in the middle of the night, 10 PM. I said I call it like I see it. Only an idiot would go spend money for a bill at a casino and just fuck off the face of the earth while doing so. Am I the arsehole? And we'll start off with Grey Fern, who says, "Not the arsehole, play stupid games and win stupid prizes. He's so fond of gambling, he bet on you not following through and he lost. Good for you for calling it like it is." Mortgage Girl replies to that and says, "With any addiction, the options, in my opinion, are get help and stay clean, or the addict is alone. Since it's gambling, it would require 100% transparency, and the non-addict controls the finances. The addict has a set amount of money and they must obtain counseling. I'd also insist on Gamblers Anonymous because there's others with the same issue for support. And they would get a sponsor to not only work with, but also as an additional level of accountability. I would not, however, hang around and wait for financial ruin, and would not get any credit or joint financial obligation with a gambling addict." Impressive says, "Not the arsehole, and your parents' reaction kinda tells me how you chose this dude in the first place. Your own parents didn't put you and their grandchildren first. They put a schmuck that spent money he didn't have to spend and essentially was fine with destroying his family first. So in the choosing, you didn't put yourself first, but somehow in this mess, you see it's wrong to not call it like you see it, which gives me hope for your future. It's not wise to be financially tied and liable for your husband's debts. Opie replies to him, both my parents are also addicts. One to gambling, one to drugs. The one addicted to gambling is the one who was with my husband at the casino. Opie adds their own comment and says, update. He got off work about an hour ago. Called me and asked me if I was coming home yet. I said I don't know. I'm not really ready to talk to you in a level-headed manner and I'm still very mad. He then told me, stay gone until you figure your shit out then. If you want to leave, stay gone. I tried to tell him he doesn't get to speak to me like that when he's the one who fucked up, but he hung up on me. He also unplugged all the security cameras in the house. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? A lot of comments on this one just saying, take his advice and stay gone then. But do you think there is ever a way to work through something like this? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you very, very much. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.